pharmaceutical medication is addictive to one point or another. I mean, Percocet, Percodan. I've taken both those. Well, I lived off of that on 3rd, 4th floor of St. Pat's Hospital.
If you could talk face to face with our congressman, legislature, anybody, what would you have to say?
Well, I'd like to bring up the pharmaceutical medications being produced and mass produced and pushed upon the people.
Good point. Okay.
I would like to say there is an alternative. It is medicinal marijuana.
Yep.
Fellows, the older people have got to have an open mind. Pharmaceuticals are killing us. Marijuana comes from the earth.
Right.
There's nothing
It's organic.
harder than that to figure out. We are killing ourselves with these pharmaceuticals.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'm a dickhead and asshole, I guess. I will not be put down. I will not be stuck down by the government or anybody. So I will use what I need to feel better. And so will you, won't you, brother? Power. Power to the people, man.
Hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed watching those interviews as much as I enjoyed taking them. Now I would like to introduce our next guest, Brian Spellman.
Brian's here from the Montana, or from TM, you don't get to edit, from TMCHF. I told him I'd mess that up, and by God I did. But he's here, they're one of our sponsors, and he's here to support us and tell us a little bit about their organization. Brian, thanks for coming down today. How are you doing? Tell us about you.
Well, thank you very much, Cassidy, for asking us to be here, and Kelly. TMCHF, the Montana Cannabis and Hemp Foundation, is very pleased to be a sponsor of Growing Green. As one of the oldest shops in the Missoula area, we've been open for about 1.5 years now. We are open 7 days a week. We're very proud of the fact that we have never been closed during our posted business hours, and we've never been out of product. We are also open in Superior 1 day a week, every Wednesday, for our patients in Mineral County and even in Sanders County who drive down to Superior to see us there. We're a full service shop. We are very pleased to be able to provide product to our patients in a whole variety of ways, not just bud, but also tinctures, lotions, creams. We've got a full range of edibles, including cookies, candies, peanut butter, honey, muffins.
Wow.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We've got medicated chai, medicated coffees. In case you want a medicated vanilla frappuccino, we've got that. We've also got boil-in-the-bag dinners, including things like clam chowder and Hungarian mushroom and red pepper soup.
So marijuana, it's not just for smoking anymore.
You know, I'm really pleased with the fact that we've got such a wide variety of things. We've got a patient, for instance, who came into our shop in a wheelchair, just terribly down. You could see by looking at her that she was in a great deal of pain. And she's got asthma. She can't smoke. She's afraid to even use a vaporizer. We were able to get her started with tinctures. Today, she walks into our shop. She's smiling, she's up, she wants to live. She was on suicide watch when she first came to see us, and now she's back in her own home. I'm really happy that we're able to help people like that and get medicine to them in forms that they can use.
Right. That's your goal, is to help people.
That is. You know, we offer free delivery in the Missoula area. I guess the one thing, you know, as I said, we have a store open in Superior now. We're planning on opening a store in the Bitterroot in the next 3 to 6 months, assuming that the legislature allows us to stay in business. And on that note, I want to tell all of your viewers, please vote. If you are not currently registered to vote, we have registration certificates in our shop where you can come in and sign up. We'll turn them in for you so that you can register. It's important that everybody vote. It's important that the legislators know that we mean business here. And with that, I would like to thank all of our patients who have been so active in calling, emailing, writing the legislators, calling, emailing, writing the governor on these important issues during these past trying times.
Yes, I agree.
All right, thank you so much. Now, what was it that brought you in? I mean, you don't look like your average hanging out on the corner, tattooed up, hippied out pot smoker. So what was it that brought you into an industry such as this?
My partner Kevin and I have been involved both in the medical profession and on Kevin's part. Kevin's a registered CNA, and I have been involved for many years in the nutritional supplement business, trying to help people to get healthy. Unfortunately, I found with nutritional supplements you can't force people to be healthy. But that's one of the wonderful things with medical marijuana, because this is a product that helps people tremendously with a whole variety of reasons and a whole variety of conditions, and people want it.
Yeah, and the list of ailments that it helps just continues to grow.
You know,
exponentially.
I was reading just recently in Science News how, and Science News, you'll have to admit, is not some hippie freak
Right.
stoner publication, right? Science News had an article recently about how medical marijuana actually targets cancerous cells, killing them and allowing healthy cells to live, unlike chemotherapy. You know, I think everyone who's suffering from cancer should be on medical marijuana. I really do. We have a patient with glaucoma who went in to see her doctor, told her doctor, I'm taking marijuana. The doctor said, the next time you come in for a test, use your marijuana before you come in. Her pressures were down from 30 down into the normal range. Her doctor was so impressed, he said, I want to get all my patients on this, test it out on all of them. That's why I'm doing it.
It's a changing world. I'm glad to be
It's
involved in
changing
this
the
part
world.
of it. All right, Brian, thank you so much for being a part of the show today, for coming down, for sponsoring us, for all the help you've given us. I wanted to see if you could bring us a big bowl of marijuana to put on the table, but I didn't get a
That'd be
hold of you in
great.
time.
Yeah, if you'd only
So,
ask.
I know. Maybe next week or a couple weeks down the road, we'll always need props and stuff as we go along. Everybody, I do want to thank Brian, and I want to thank our other guests that are here. One of them is Talon Lang. He's the director of the Missoula chapter of the Medical Marijuana Growers Association, Montana Medical Marijuana Growers Association. And I was able to interview him a couple months back when I first got started in this project. And so much has changed between then and now. It almost seemed like I should just scrap that, but it was so much work to begin with. I want to bring it to you really because there's just so much that's happened between then and now, and I want you to see where things were. And he's going to be on the show and answer your questions. We'll be able to see more of where things are right now. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and roll some footage from a video I did with Talon about 2-3 months ago.
Hi, I'm Cassidy Wood, and I'm here with Talon Lane, the director of the Sweetwater Patient Services. Tell us, Talon, to start off, I guess, what is the MMGA? What's it all about?
Well, the MMGA is a statewide trade association that represents well over half of the patients and caregivers in the state of Montana. We are a trade association that's aimed at the goal of making this sustainable to the people of the state of Montana. So it's our goal of the MMGA to carry on in the spirit of what Initiative 148 was meant to be, what it stands for. So the way that we do that is by educating people, bringing ethics and standards to the industry, and you know, doing everything that we can on a legislative level with city and local governments and everything else that we can do to sustain this and make this sustainable to the people of the state of Montana.
So what are we expecting in the upcoming legislative session, changes in the laws, and how is it going to affect the people of Montana that have medical marijuana?
Well, it's actually kind of a precarious situation right now. The last elections didn't really go well for us that are in this industry. There's a growing tide of people who would like to see medical cannabis go away completely. They just feel that it's fraught with too many problems. There's too many abuses of the system, and so you know, we definitely have our work cut out for us in this next legislative session. I think that it could even be a real possibility that this whole thing could go away, which would be a terrible, terrible disservice to so many patients. My background is not in cannabis. My background is in business management, sales, and trading. And I only became involved with cannabis businesses this last year, in January actually of this last year. In that year, I have met some of the most amazing and wonderful and just good people who are not criminals, who shouldn't be put in jail because they use cannabis to you know, fix their Crohn's disease or their chronic pain from a car automobile accident. We have stories time and time again that have come up where people have been able to get off of many year addictions to opiate painkillers. We've had people who've been on things like OxyContin and
Which is another big problem in
Prescription drugs.
Missoula,
Terrible.
Montana, and the whole country right now.
right. And so now we have a substance which is safer, far safer than any of those prescription medications. We've had now medical marijuana in the state for, you know, the last couple of years, and the sky isn't falling, and society hasn't gone all to hell, which, you know, of course the prohibitionists would like to say, you know, if you make marijuana legal, then, you know, it's going to be the end of the world, and that's simply not the case.
Back to reefer madness.
Yeah, back to reefer madness, and that's just simply not the case. Time and time again, where countries or governments have taken a different stance, a non-punitive stance towards drugs. The country of Portugal, for example, is a great example of that. 10 years ago, they legalized, didn't legalize, they decriminalized all substances, which means that if you have a 30-day supply of whatever it is, whether it be cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, you know, marijuana, LSD, anything, it's no longer a criminal matter. Since that time, their rates of violent crime have decreased. Their rates of HIV transmission have decreased. The amount of people that they're incarcerating has decreased. Their rates of addiction have actually decreased, and actual drug use in the country has decreased. And all of the people who fearmongered and said, well, if you legalize it, then Portugal is going to become a haven for drug tourists, and we're just going to have people laying in the gutters stoned out of their mind all day, and none of those things happen. So this is just another. I think that progressive drug policy is incredibly important.
Do you know, have statistics came out in the last several years to show a rise or decline in drug arrests, incarcerations, and things of that nature here in Montana?
Sure, and the thing that was interesting is that the voters, for example, here in the city of Missoula, there was an ordinance that went into effect where they were talking about making marijuana the lowest priority for the sheriffs and police departments here. And since that time, arrests have not slowed down. They've actually increased. So, you know, what's going on? Are we really making marijuana the lowest priority, or is that all just a bunch of talk, or are organizations not listening to what they should be listening to? You know, so.
All right. Well, we're running short on time today, but you've agreed to come on the show. I look forward to having you on there to answer some more questions and have our viewers call in and pick your brain.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to see what's coming up. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you very much.
Great having us here today. Thank you.
welcome back. I have the opportunity to say thank you for that interview, Talon, and thank you so much for keeping that promise and being down here for our show today. It's great to have you.
Yes, it is great to have you.
Well, thank you guys for inviting me to come on. I really do appreciate that. This is a great opportunity to talk about this really important issue and where we're headed with this issue in the state. So.
Right, so Talon, can you give us a little bit of a background on how we got where we are?
Sure. In the year 2004, there was a voter-sponsored initiative that passed here in the state of Montana by a measure of 62%, actually statewide, which is fairly significant. As a matter of fact, this initiative won in most House districts by a much greater percentage than the politician who was actually even elected in those House districts. Of course, there were a lot of House districts where candidates ran unopposed and then they won by a larger percentage. But 62% of Montana's voting population, which is a number of in excess of 250,000 people, voted for this initiative. When it first came about, the program started off very, very slowly. There were, a few brave souls who decided that they would put their name on this government list and say, I'm a medical user of cannabis. And the program pretty much progressed in that way very slowly and remained very small for a number of years. Then a memo was sent out by the Obama administration, which stated that federal funds would not be used to prosecute anybody in a medical state. So that means that if you were in a state that had a medical marijuana law on the books, the federal authorities would not go in and make any attempts to bust you. They wouldn't use federal funds to come in and prosecute you and do any of that stuff. So
That's been working out well so far?
well, it's kind of interesting how that progressed. So basically what happened at that point, when that memo came out, we saw more people become comfortable with putting their name on this government list and becoming a part of the medical cannabis program. There were, a few individuals who exploited that and made a business out of actually getting people their cards. And so we had caravans and things going throughout the state and large numbers of people getting signed up on the program. That's when the perception of trouble started to happen here within the industry. They said, oh my God, well, how can we have, now at this point, 28, getting close to 30,000 Montanans, on a registry to use medical cannabis. So during the interim subcommittee, actually, let me back up here to last summer. The legislature realized that this was an issue that needed to be addressed. So a subcommittee, the House Health and Human Services Committee, was put together, and through the course of last summer, they met about 6 or 8 times and had input from the Board of Medicine, the Board of Labor, Board of Education, caregivers, representatives from law enforcement. And so basically a bill was put together through these subcommittee meetings. This bill went on to become House Bill 68, which Diane Sands sponsored and presented to the legislature. Unfortunately, the legislature, in my mind, was so focused on the repeal of this act. At that point, that was the only thing that they wanted to have, was just repeal of the Medical Marijuana Act. So many of the regulatory bills, which were good regulatory bills, were introduced earlier on in the session. And because the legislature was so sure that repeal was going to be the thing that happened, they shot down all of these regulatory bills. So House Bill 68 died, Senate Bill 154 died. Most of the regulatory bills, which were responsible regulatory bills, died because the legislature was so bent on repeal. Now, as we know now, the governor has vetoed HB 161, which is the repeal bill. So repeal is now not out there on the table. The only other thing that we have right now is Senate Bill 423. Now, the trouble with Senate Bill 423 is that the stated goals of Senate Bill 423 and the people who have been working on this bill are to reduce the number of patients in the state of Montana and to take all the money out of the industry. Now, as the number of patients on the registry grew, one of the unintended consequences, although I think it's a very positive one, is that an industry grew up around this.
Right, the numbers I heard were like there's 1,400 jobs created directly through this and probably another 1,400 jobs created and other industries that are supporting the
I would-
medical marijuana industry?
I would actually venture to guess that the number is much more.
Much higher.
There's over 4,000 caregivers in the state of Montana currently, okay?
You know,
When you're talking about the number of jobs that have been created, if we're looking, for example, at a storefront. So, one of the places that I worked at, actually the first dispensary that I opened, had only 2 or 3 caregivers that were there, but those caregivers had other employees that worked in the business. So now you're talking about a receptionist, you're talking about your bud tenders, you're talking about managers, you're talking about the people who work in the production facilities, the gardeners, the growers, the master growers. You're also talking about the ancillary businesses that are supported by this, electricians and construction workers and alarm company technicians and locksmiths and mom and pop grow stores. And so it's not just the industry and the number of caregivers and people and jobs that this has created here. Really, the elephant in the room is that in the state of Montana, and this is according to the government's own statistics from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Statistics Association, it's a government agency, the number of Montanans who use marijuana in the state has remained static for the last 10 years. And it's roughly about 10% of our population. So that means that there's about 100,000 Montanans who smoke pot.
and about 1.2%. If there's at 28,000, there's a million. That's what, 2.8%?
Yeah, and so now 2.8% of them are now on the registry.
Legally using marijuana.
Legally. Now, the thing that's significant about that is the 100,000 Montanans who were smoking pot before we had a medical law in the books, and the number of Montanans who are using marijuana has not increased since the medical marijuana law has been put on the books. The only shift that's happened is that now the money that those people were already spending on their marijuana is staying here within the state for the
Not going
first
to
time
Canada
ever.
or Mexico or
It's not going to British Columbia, it's not going to California, it's not going to Mexican cartels. That's money that is staying here within our state and churning within our economy. And, economists will tell you for every dollar that's spent in a local economy, it churns at least 7 times. So now we're talking about money that's going to payroll, that's paying for rents, that's paying for insurances, and that's staying here within our state and stimulating our economy rather than going outside.
bringing you back to some of the, I'm not going to say it right, ancillary businesses
Ancillary, yeah.
that are involved and the people, the jobs that they get. One of those people is Jason Barkey, and I call him a master grower. He says he's more like a bud tender. But he works for TMCHF and is willing to be here with us today too. So that as soon as we open this up for calls, you'll be able to call in and ask questions about growing, and any questions you have for Taylor, we'll be able to field some of that too. Jason, why don't you go ahead and tell us about yourself and what you do, and meanwhile, the great folks in the back room can punch the phone number in and people can start calling.
Where I call myself a bud tender is we do have master growers, people that are basically good gardeners. And it works the same way with growing different types of flowers or different types of vegetables. There's a lot of variance in what you do with each individual strain or the different types of way to cultivate it. I don't consider myself a master grower at all, because even the master growers, I know every one of them said it's a learning process. Every time they start a new strain, there's people that are actually breeding different strains to come up with a more desired effect for medical purposes. And, it's an art, and that's what I'll call it, it's an art. People that breed flowers, that's an art. It all works in the same way. It's a lot more technical than just throwing out some seeds and watering it and, think you're going to have, all this big, buds or whatever within the industry. You have to have a controlled environment. It has to be clean. You have to, take care of your plants. We have, like with any garden, you have pests, you have blights or molds, and that all has to be took care of. The common misconception that I hear a lot is, that it's easy. Well, in working in the industry, it's not I mean, you're transplanting. There's all sorts of things that can happen and go wrong. You can have an electrical problem that will kill an entire crop. You can get an infestation of insects or a mold, and you have to start over. It's,
So
it's an agricultural product.
Just because they call it weed, you can't just throw seeds down and expect dandelions
Yeah,
and
so what
buds to
you're
pop
saying-
out in your front yard. 'Cause it,
Well,
right, and I get that, there's a lot of work, and we're ready. And my phone's not ringing, which really bums me out. So call in and give us your questions, let us know what's going on, what you want to know. This is a live interactive show. We got 8 weeks here at MCAT to bring you this show, to bring you information, and Jason here, when we're done with the call-in section, is going to give a little demonstration on dirts and soils and mediums that you can grow in. Then we have Tiffany from Tiffany's Treats that's going to be here showing you how to make Rice Krispie treats in your microwave in just a couple of minutes. So we have a call now. Let's go ahead and see who that is. You're on Growing Green. Go ahead, caller. Oh, maybe we don't. Are you there, caller?
Hello.
I'm lost. Okay, well, we'll go back to where we were. Tiffany from Tiffany Treats is going to be here. Let's try again. Go ahead, caller. You're on Growing Green.
Yeah, hi. I had a question. Are there different kinds of strains of marijuana that can be used for different kinds of ailments? I mean, is one better for, say, a stomach ailment as opposed to back pain?
Yeah, there's 2 main families of cannabis. There's your cannabis sativa. There's actually three families of cannabis: cannabis sativa, cannabis indica, and cannabis ruderalis. Your cannabis sativa, and what distinguishes these different strains is the way that the cannabinoids are arranged by the plant. Your cannabis sativa is usually a taller, thinner, more spindly plant, and it has higher levels of delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, which is THC, which we all know is the psychoactive ingredient. They're effective for many conditions, including anxiety, a lot of disorders, PTSD. They're also helpful for things like appetite stimulation and to decrease nausea. Then you have your cannabis indica plants. The cannabis indica is shorter and squatter, broader leaves, and they have higher ratios of CBD and CBN as compared to a sativa plant, which has higher THC content. These strains are generally helpful for conditions like pain, muscle neuropathy. A lot of people with MS will find that they gain significant benefits from using the indica types of strains. So the thing that's interesting about it is that generally we'll say the indica strains will be good for this, and generally the sativa strains are good for this. However, everybody's body and body chemistry is different. So sometimes it takes a little bit of experimenting with this strain and moving in a different direction until you can find the strain or the medication that's going to work well for whatever your condition is.
Yeah, we our store, we offer samples of the different kinds, because what works for me as a patient for pain might not work so well for you. It might just put you to sleep. We have a particular strain that it has a very low THC content and a real high CBD content, and it's probably one of our most beautiful plants. But it's you can smoke. If you're smoking it, you can smoke it and you don't get high. It turns you into a rubber band, kind of. It's like a muscle relaxer. It relieves your nerves and inflammations. And, the chronic misconception is people are just wanting to get high or whatever. If somebody gave Lortabs or something for their their medication, I mean, one of the side effects is, you get high, I guess, would be the right way. You get,
And we're going to do a whole
one
show
way,
on that
but-
too, about the opiate addiction and the pills and how many people are getting relief from pills that are supposed to be giving them relief.
It's
using
been-
medical marijuana.
Cassidy, my experience with all this has been really incredible. I had
By the way, thank you, caller, for your question.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
And we're ready for more.
my experience with this so far has really been enlightening and eye-opening. I was not involved in the medical marijuana industry at all a year and a half ago. It was, I really didn't know anything, and the volume of information that I have gained in that time has been incredible. Far from marijuana being an entry or a gateway drug, I found it to be the exact opposite. I found it to be an exit drug. We've had so many patients who have come in and said, Talon, I've had 10-year opiate painkiller addictions that I've been able to get off of strictly by using this medical cannabis, and that's powerful.
Okay, let's see what our caller's got. You're on Growing Green, caller. How are you today?
Fine, how are you?
Good. How can I help you?
I was just wondering if there's a difference between cannabis grown in hydro systems or cannabis grown in dirt.
That's a good question.
Great question.
All right, then I'll let this off, and he can answer your question.
Cannabis grown in hydro systems use liquid fertilizers. When I showed the different mediums, it will be some plants grow better in a hydro medium than others. Hydro in certain respects seems to progress faster. They don't get as big. They're not quite as healthy. In my experience in a greenhouse for the last year and a half, they both have their pros and cons. I don't exactly know how to phrase it. Certain plants work really good in dirt and they don't respond so well in hydro. And there's a certain group of strains, and any of the growers that, when we're trying something new, it's an experiment that we find where it responds better. Certain people have great luck with Miracle-Gro, and other people will tell you that, it's garbage. A lot of it has to depend on how you're growing, your environment, because your environment's real important, the nutrients that you use, and how your plants respond to what you're using to grow with. So the big difference is your plant that you're growing, your genetics, and where it responds. And it's a trial and error. And every master grower I know will tell you that with anything, it's a trial and error. We've took clones and had 10 or 12 different patients have clones from the same plant. Some do hydro, some do dirt, some do some of the other mediums that would be considered a type of hydro, but from all the same plant and the clones from the same plant, we ended up with 12 different products. And you wouldn't think that would be possible, but it had to do with the nutrients, the light, the environment, just the TLC. You can have two old ladies next to each other with the same seeds from the same grocery store down the way, and one lady has this beautiful garden and the other one not quite so beautiful, and it works the same way in our industry.
All right, well, and you'll be back here in a few minutes.
Your question.
And thank you for that question, because we need that phone to ring more and have shorter answers and more questions. But we'll get there. We got 8 weeks. But this is an interactive show. So for this to work, just like with the legislators and everybody else, we need your help. We need you to be calling in. We need you to be calling your senators, your governors, your legislatures, writing people. Be involved, because this affects you. Now, we're going to take it from here. We're going to thank you guys so much. I guess we're going to take one more really quick call before we switch over to Tiffany from Tiffany's Treats. You're on the air with Growing Green.
Yeah, does it matter if I eat marijuana versus smoke marijuana with the effects?
The ingestion method for taking your cannabis is going to give you different results. When you smoke your cannabis or you smoke your marijuana, the effects that you're going to feel are going to be immediate. That's one of the things, and it's one of the reasons why people like to be able to smoke it, because unlike taking an aspirin or taking or eating an edible or anything else like that, the effects and the relief that you feel are immediate. However, and so that makes it easier to titrate your dosage or to take just enough for what you need. When you eat it, or when you eat an edible, oftentimes the results will last much longer, but the onset will take a little bit longer. So the effects are a little bit different, and we always recommend to patients to find the ingestion method that's going to work the best for you and your condition. If you have COPD or chronic, obstructive pulmonary disease, we're not going to advise that you smoke. So.
Awesome. And I bet Tiffany can tell us some more about that. So we're going to go to Tiffany from Tiffany's Treats, and she's going to show us how to make Rice Krispies in our microwave in 5 minutes using marijuana butter. Make your own edibles. Go ahead, Tiff.
Hey, thanks for coming and watching us today. Today I'm going to make Rice Krispie treats using cannabis butter. We're going to start with a 1/4 cup of butter. We're going to put it over the marshmallows and mix it in well. And then we're going to head over to the microwave and put it in for about 1.5 minutes. You're going to want to check your marshmallows. Microwave times may vary. You don't want to have an explosion of marshmallows in the microwave. So we're going to mix this in here really good. You want your marshmallows to be really coated with the butter so that you don't have to worry about separation later. That looks pretty good here. Now I'm using cannabis butter today, and next week I'm going to be talking about how to make that cannabis butter. Everybody's methods may be different, but I'm going to be showing you a way that you can have the same dose every time. So I'm going to put 2 minutes on the microwave. I have lupus. Every day I use medical cannabis to help moderate pain and other things in my life. I like to smoke for instant relief, but I also like to eat cannabis so that I have a lasting effect. When I smoke in the morning before I have to start work, I also take a cannabis pill or have another form of treat or whatever, but that helps to make it till lunchtime or also make it till dinner time so that I don't have to worry about taking breaks at work. So I'm going to check on these marshmallows, and they look like they're doing good. So cannabis ingestion is good for multiple things. We were talking about that earlier. You can make cannabis food for gluten-free dietary problems, or you can also take the cannabis pills. There are tinctures and stuff available. Not all tinctures have to be alcohol. There's a great glycerin tincture that you can make. So, get out there, educate yourself. Hopefully in the next 8 weeks, we'll also get you educated on eating your edibles and making them. So, I am going to check on the marshmallows and stir them one time so we get them mixed up nice and good. And they look like they're doing really good. Cooking with cannabis is fun. It smells great. It's one of the benefits. Start this again. So after the marshmallows are done, we're going to be using about 4 cups of Rice Krispie treats. In my treats, I like to add some M&Ms. They're kind of fun. I'm going to put a little bit more time on this. You can mix any kind of candy that you want. You can actually add raisins or coconuts or any healthier things. The nice thing about making Rice Krispie treats is if you don't add anything extra, it's gluten-free, which is, sometimes making gluten-free things can be a little bit problematic. You use Rice Krispies, which is rice, and the butter and the marshmallows do not contain any glutens. So normally I grease my bowl, but today I didn't do that. I'm gonna dump the Rice Krispie treats into the bowl, and then I'm gonna add the marshmallows. Sometimes the butter separates at the bottom of the bowl, so you wanna mix it up really good before you pour it onto the Rice Krispie treats. And another warning, please keep this away from your children and anybody that doesn't have a medical marijuana card. They do look appetizing and they taste great, but we wouldn't want a dog or a cat or a child to get into any of these. These need to be kept in a very safe place, hopefully locked away or in the bedroom, not on the kitchen counter. I like to add a lot of marshmallows in mine. They make them last a little bit longer. Nice thing about Rice Krispie treats is that you can cut them into any size and take as much or as little as needed. With treats, I always say that, take a little bit at a time, and then you can always add more, but you can't really take it away. The effects on people for having cannabis treats are quite varied, so we wouldn't want you to have too much. So it also takes 30 to 90 minutes for cannabis to take effect in your system. So before you eat more, you're gonna wanna wait that 30 to 90 minutes before. You would hate to take too much. And if in the point you did feel like you took too much, drink some fruit juice, lay down. Nobody's ever died from cannabis, ever. So here is what our Rice Krispie treats are gonna look like. And we're gonna put all these bowls over the side here. Don't they look pretty with the M&Ms?
right, thank you very much for
Thank
being
you.
on the show with us.
Thank you very much. All right.
Next week, she will be back with us to show us how to make butter, right?
Yep, I will be here
All
making
right.
butter. So stay tuned for next week. Awesome. Thank you
Cool.
for having me.
Thanks.
We're the Montana Cannabis and Hemp Foundation, your mature, professional, reliable caregivers, located at 401 West Broadway, Suite C, Missoula, Montana.
Welcome back. Thank you, Tiffany, so much for all that information,
Yes.
which is pretty quick. It doesn't take long to make a great treat out of marijuana, it would seem.
I love Rice Krispie treats.
So coming up next, we got Jason Barkey banging around in the background because we have a small studio to work with. And he's going to give you a demonstration or at least some lowdown on soil and what you can do at home. We want you to know by the time we're done how to grow your own and how to make things out of it. So that's why Tiff is coming back next week to show us how to make butter. And Jason or someone not quite as great as him will be here to show us lighting. I guess they still need a second or two to get that set up. So while they're doing that, let me go back for a second and thank some people. Taylin Lang, who works tirelessly for everybody in this industry. Brian Spellman from the TMH, the Montana Cannabis and Hemp Foundation, who is now using initials rather than that name. And everybody here at MCAT, Philip helping in the back there, Joel and Christian for all the advice and help they've given along the way. This show is only here because a lot of people have helped me and Kelly get it here for you. So with that, we'll turn it over to Jason and let you learn a little bit about the soils that are best to use for growing marijuana and what you should do. Go ahead, Jason, take it.
I was going to start with the clay pellets, and they come from Germany, and they're hollow. They use this for growing in hydro as a medium. It collects the nutrients in the water and holds it in there for the roots for the plant to absorb and allows the plant to grow. And you pump your water into your system, and your rocks fill it as it goes through, and it allows it to hold. So you cycle it, and some people use 6 hours or 12 hours or whatever, and it goes different. I'm going to move to a separate one, and this is your perlite, and it also does the same. It is soil mixed with cocoa and perlite, and it helps absorb some of the water and the nutrients for the plants to absorb in the process of growing. Technically, we don't have any just straight dirt up here. They're mostly what we call a hydro medium. More dirt holds your water more and allows for root rot. That's where a lot of people have a problem using just regular soil. The cocoa, which I'm a little bit more familiar with, is a soilless medium, and it's natural, but it absorbs the water and allows the roots to absorb the nutrients in the water when they're fed. And it's good for roughly 24 hours when you feed it.
Does it taste like chocolate?
No, it doesn't taste like chocolate. Doesn't even look like chocolate, but it actually is, it's really nice, but it has to be maintained. A lot of people have the idea that, like I said earlier, you just throw out a seed and you don't, add some water and it's going to grow and you'll have this miraculous, buds off of your plant. And really, that's the farthest from the truth. This medium, and I can't remember the name of it, but it is it's the same thing. It just absorbs water and allows your roots to absorb from it. It holds it, and your plants absorb your nutrients and your water right straight from the different mediums. Generally, this is mixed in other soils. Some people use peat moss. There's a variety of other agricultural methods to grow marijuana, just the same as different farmers use different types of fertilizers and things to grow their wheat or their corn.
All right, Jason, I got a question for you.
All right.
If I were to be growing my own plants,
Okay.
I would just use the best soil and grow it really quick, you know. Why would you want to start with, say, this or this instead of just really good soil to grow your plants in?
Actually, you start by, if you're using a seed, you have to sprout them and get them to come up, and they form roots. And you're transplanting, they have grow-dans is what we call them, and they're cubes that I know some people that do, and it allows the roots to go. And then you separate, you make a hole in there, and you set it in there, and your roots grow out from that and into your clay pellets,
Right.
which hold your water and your nutrients.
Okay, I was gonna say this
There's
doesn't.
no fast grow method.
Right.
You know, it takes a certain amount of time for your plant to get so tall, and it takes a certain amount of time to flower.
I get it, and then you change once it gets older.
Right, and that has to do with your lighting. In a lot of respects, we're mimicking Mother Nature, which isn't as easy as it has to say. Usually in veg, which is where you're letting your plant grow and get a little bit bigger, everybody has their own variants of what they like to do with lighting, but we have a tendency to use 18 and 6, so it more mimics summertime, you know,
Right.
and faster growth. But as it goes on, and a lot of people use different lighting for that. They have different spectrums in the light. As you know, in the summer, it's, you know, in the spring, it's more of a bluish color and promotes growth and harmony. And then towards the fall, at harvest time, you know, Mother Nature, you know, shortens the days, and, you know, so they start to bud.
Right.
And like with anything, buds, like the difference between like a bud and a tomato is you can't pick a bud and set it off to the side and expect it to mature and, you know, ripen.
Right.
Like with other fruits, you have to leave them on the plant, and they grow. We were talking about trichones earlier in the show. They have little microscopes that we look at, and as they crystal up, they change colors. They're clear, and then they go to more of an amber. And it's a lot more scientific and technical than a lot of people would think. But as your trichones or your crystals start to change color, that's where your potency is. About halfway through, they consider that to be your highest THC content, or the most mature for, you know, harvest. If it goes past that, it changes. The quality changes. It's like an overripe tomato. Some people like them, some don't. But
Will a better soil give a plant more THC?
no, your genetics pretty much dictate your THC within parameters. How you grow it and the quality that you get is a lot dependent on you. With the different mediums, and I'd recommend talking to your local grow supply store, and we all try to do business locally, support our own economy. And as you go in and you explain to them what you're trying to do, whether it's a hydro system or cocoa or a different type of soil, they can give you a lot more. You know, a lot of it has to do with your environment, how much you're using, you know, what you can afford.
Yeah.
Because it's not as, you know, necessarily inexpensive to grow either. Hydro use a lot more chemicals, liquid nutrients. There's a lot of people that are doing it organic with compost piles and, you know, all natural.
And is that good? Is that
Yeah.
a good idea?
Actually, it is. You're not chemically altering anything. Every of the growers that I know, they we all flush our plants for a minimum week to 2 weeks to get any of the residual nutrients out of them. So, you know, it takes a toxology. We just use straight water to flush them, and they still grow for the 2 weeks and just absorb the water, but it flushes.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
the information.
Have a wonderful evening.
You
and
too.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you, everybody. We're just about out of time, but I want to take a couple minutes here before we get off the air to finish thanking a couple people. I've thanked a bunch of people. I know I'm going to forget 100 of them. Shane Knight gave us the music tracks that we're using. We want to thank him, and go out to Shane Knight on Facebook and check out Bad As They Come. And last but not least, you know, when the voters put this into legislation in 2004, it wasn't the government that did it, it was the people. And we are still being ran by draconian Puritan values that were brought here 300 years ago when the Dutch kicked the Puritans out. Most people aren't against marijuana, they're against looking bad. And we want to bring you the information that you need to make informed choices, because this is helping a lot of people. This is helping your neighbors, this is helping your lawyers, your doctors, your firemen. So many people are benefiting from this. You can benefit too. You can help everybody be a benefit from this industry financially and physically. So thanks for joining the Growing Green Show, and we hope you'll come back next week. I want to thank Kelly, my co-host, for all her hard work, and we can't wait to have you guys back. Get your questions ready so we can get them answered. You can email us at growinggreen@bresnan.net.
Yeah.
And check us out at www.growinggreen420.webs.com or something like that. And we'll get more information to you as we go. I'm new, folks. Thanks for coming.
Hope to see you next week.